What up, folks? Damn, that was a good one today, bro. I am amped up. We have been talking for a while. You have been so kind to include me on your community a long time ago. I feel kind of like a jackass because I haven't been as active, but I've been really concentrating on beautiful people like yourself, getting them on the podcast. Welcome to the Mikey G and Web3 show. How you doing, brother?
Thank you very much, mate. I'm good. I'm excited to be here. It's been a long time coming. Been excited for it since we first spoke. So glad to finally get it going.
Man, dude, I'm so happy you're here. And I also want to commend you. Like, you know, you've utilized some really great ecosystems like the Plague and Hen House, and you've just done a good job, I think, of deeply connecting with your community, and you're doing something much needed in the space is to try and get the right content out there and not the grifter content. So props to you, brother. Just wanted to say that. Thank you for being you. Absolutely. And so, little updates about Mikey G. I am in Broc. I was going to say, for the longest time I pronounced your I was saying Broc. And I was like,
everyone does.
But then I was like, dude, B-Rock is way cooler, and I hope I can call him B-Rock, but it actually is B-Rock, so we're good because I want to call you B-Rock. I just like saying that. So, B-Rock, here's the thing that I've done, and you've probably seen me in the last couple of weeks being in Treble's spaces. I've been an advocate and very vocal of this. Spaces, not my most beloved thing that I do. I really enjoy this podcast, but I finally come to terms with it. It's a necessary thing for me to grow my brand and get exposure, you know, and I'm really concentrating on getting more exposure. So not only am I going to start showing up to my man, the myth, the legend, Treble Spaces as much as possible, I am actually working with a couple of my OG friends way back from the 2021 days in creating a consistent space. My co-founder Bubble, who's on the strategy side, who I cannot wait for you to meet, man, just brilliant human being. Me and him have done some impromptu spaces the last couple of days. And really what I'm targeting when I bring this space too is the same thing right here. This is like deep, meaningful conversation. I think a lot of this stuff is super surface level, and I'm trying my hardest to and even intentionally, the thing that came up last week was like me talking about community managers and they don't understand community strategies. It's just intentionally putting more controversial stuff out there just so we can have actual conversation. So I'm really excited to do that. That's going to be part of my strategy. As far as guests coming up, I literally could book guests out for the next 4 months. Like it's gotten to the point where I'm already getting traction quick. The hack was really big stall for about 45 days. But we've got Matsuyaki coming on next week. Final Bosu's minting on Monday. Kev's brother's coming on Wednesday. We've been talking for months. He is such a kind, awesome, amazing human being and individual. I'm talking to people like Typical Friends. I'm talking to Kronos. Kronos is an amazing human being, right? And a lot of people from Treble Spaces are starting to come on. But I also have a lot of other founders in the works. I am doing actually a horrible job of trying to, because I you know, and I don't know how you deal with this. I'm just going to go off tangent already, B-Rock. I have a very difficult time trying to manage the effectiveness of the different founders and the content that they bring, because like I said, I could literally book out for 4 months, but I like to keep it a little more real time based on the ecosystem and what's relevant. That's a very difficult thing to do. Am I just going crazy, or do you have similar issues that you have to deal with?
It is very, I mean, we have similar issues to some extent, but it's not as difficult for us to do because of the way we place our content, I guess. And it being more focused on perspective rather than opinion. Even though
Interesting.
perspective and opinion are very similar things, but
Yeah.
as we essentially speak to founder, I mean, we speak to a lot of founders every week, and like you, when it comes to the live portion of it, when we do spaces, I
Uh-huh.
think it's very, very relevant to speak to founders that are having current conversations with the public about something that's happening at that moment, because
Yeah.
they want that sentiment to be fresh, I guess.
Yeah. And I think
But
I
yeah,
think the thing that I get stressed out about it, but then I also do a reverse to say, like, what am I actually really doing here? I'm telling life stories. That's always relevant, right? This is always evergreen content. Actually, 75% of my content is just about deep, authentic, genuine human connection, right? So I I kind of try to take a step back as well to be like, okay, am I prioritizing the right things or not? But we'll get into that because that's just a whole another founder entrepreneurship thing. Prioritization, that's just a beast in itself. But enough about me. We're here for you, brother. That's the last time I'm going to talk about myself. The rest of the conversation is about B Rock and the beautiful human being he is. But before we get to the question that I always ask on this podcast, I always love to do kind of a formal introduction. It's no surprise to anybody. Literally, the logo is up there, but he is the founder of OG Triple Media, which, by the way, love that name as well, too. He has had 15 years global consulting in the tech and media. He is, we talked about this in our intro call. We hit it off in that way. I've come from a brand media perspective as well, too. Diehard NFT collector enthusiast, but you also made a point to talk about storytelling. And I can't wait to talk about that because everyone says this is a typical space problem I have. You'll get all these people up here and they're like, dude, it's all about storytelling. And then you ask them what storytelling means and it's crickets, right? So, like, I can't wait to deeply talk about what storytelling means to you and how you think you're effectively using it and what the space could be doing better. That's going
yeah,
to be a fascinating conversation. But in addition, and this is the most fun part of the introduction, this man has played at a very high level football and rugby. And you also said sprinting?
yeah. I used to be a national sprinter in the UK in my
National
younger
sprinter in
days.
the U. Nice, dude. So that's it. That's the formal introduction. How did I do? Did I do you justice? Do you want to add anything else to it?
Make more than justice. A lot of things that I haven't spoken about in a very long time. So more than justice. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. I am super pumped. And now we are here. The world famous Mikey G and Web3 podcast question. B-Rock, how did you get to the seat you're sitting in today? Please give me episode 1, 2, and 3. To reiterate for the audience that has never listened to this podcast before, episode 1 is your childhood. Again, like I said before our call, huge question. Hey, man, tell me about your childhood. I'm really looking for here mantras that parental figures taught you, be kind, whatever it may be, or vivid memories. Or, like you said, you played sports. Were you a tinkerer? Were you creative? Like all of these things that built the foundation of the human being you are today. I think it's critically important. And just not a lot of people have an opportunity to talk about that. Episode 2, schooling, professional career, entrepreneurship, but mainly failures here. And failures in the sense that when you fail and you reflect and you look back, you come away with insights or skill sets, and you use those to progress, learn, and grow. Those are the interesting moments to me. And then episode 3, obviously Web3, one of the reasons we're here. How did you find it? A TLDR on Web3 and how you found it. And then we'll really talk about OG Triple Media and what the next 3 to 6 months looks like. So that is it, brother. We are into the meat of the content. Hit me up with episode 1 and let me know wherever you want to start, brother.
And we're going all the way back to childhood, right?
Yeah, and anywhere, man. I've had people say, like, listen, I came out of the womb and I went to a crib. That's fine if you want to do that. Or you can start at 5, you can start at 6. Maybe start with a vivid memory or a mantra that you live by.
I think the most vivid thing I remember from my childhood is always, funny enough, is birthdays and Christmas. I think that's what goes my
Ooh,
brain goes back to every
nice.
time I think about it, and um, very much a. I used to spend a lot of time in the US as a
Oh,
child.
okay. Where at?
Yeah. Either New York or Maryland, Washington, just outside Washington D.C.
Get the hell out of here. I was born in DC and grew up in Maryland. Did you know that?
No, no, I didn't know.
Are you shitting me? I
Yeah,
grew up,
yes.
I ended up in Frederick, Maryland. And then after I got to college, I came back, what lived in like Northern Virginia, Boston, Arlington, and then ended up in Silver Spring, Maryland, like all around the border of DC. This is insane in an incredibly small world. Where in Maryland?
I can't remember the exact place in now, but my mum's aunt, so my grandfather's sister,
Hmm.
when they left the Caribbean when they were kids, one she went to America, he went to the UK, and she had children around my age. Whereas
Okay.
obviously my mum had me around at my age,
Right.
so we would often go there every year, spend a few Halloweens there. I mean, it's funny. I spent probably the best years of my childhood in America, when Halloween was hella fun. At Christmas time, where it was just white snow in
Ah,
Maryland, going to the I used to go to this basketball hall there as well.
mhm.
I can't remember what it's called, but like a rec center kind of thing, and
Right.
play basketball with my cousins over there. So that's a really early one. That was probably from the age of 6. I probably did that
Wow,
every
dude,
year.
you're pulling at my heartstrings
And
here. And what was it about there? Because I feel like there's something there. It was it just the belonging of family, the tradition. Like, talk to me a little bit about that as to why these memories were so fond. Because I feel like there's something there to unpack.
yeah, well, I grew up an only child, so that was
Mm,
probably my first time spending time almost in a sibling environment, I guess, because we would go for like 6 weeks at a time
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
Crazy amount of time, and grew very close to everyone that was over there. Felt like home. It was during that kind of 90s era where like wrestling was big, and
Hmm.
we were getting our first PlayStations and everything. And I was experiencing dens, like they had dens over, like the houses were built different over there to the UK, where there was like a basement, and that was like boys area, and there's a big TV set up with a sofa and gaming, and it was just like it was like going on a little holiday camp every year. But more
That's
importantly, I think because I got to spend time with I grew up in a very female orientated environment. That was like
mm,
my first male orientated environment as well,
hmm,
with
hmm.
boys around me and stuff. And it was I got to learn how to be a bit more competitive, and was doing
Okay.
sports with them, and it was just a complete different change of direction, and change of atmosphere. So I
Yeah.
thoroughly loved going there, kind of thing. So that is one of my earliest and fondest memories, is being over in the US. And yeah, I learned how to play sports, a lot of sport. I
Hmm.
mean, I've learned how to play basketball there.
Hmm.
Um, as I said before, not so much obviously football and rugby, but I
Yeah.
grew a love for other types of sports, and I think as I got older, I naturally was capable of playing any sport, and I definitely put it down to being there.
All right, dude. So here is, and if I'm looking down, I'm taking notes. By the way, I'm not paying
Yeah,
attention.
yeah.
You already said two things that I'm really interested in, and it was like, okay, so you get to travel and you kind of get into like a more male ecosystem. What are the benefits growing up in more of a female dominated household? Because I know there's some, or how do you
Oh,
reflect on that? Because I would love insights there.
my mother is. I was brought up by my mother predominantly, and my mother has four three sisters, and then she has a group of five female friends who I all thought were related to me as a child. They were aunties.
Yeah.
So I always thought they were relatives. So I just had this surrounding of like motherhood around me, as
Right.
well as my
Right.
grandmother.
Yeah.
So grew up with a lot of respect. Grew up with having to give a lot of respect and understand what the environment kind of looked like in a very female environment. But you don't know it's a female environment in that kind of way. As I
Yeah.
said, that realization came once I wasn't in one. But I think as an adult, when I look back at what I got out of my childhood,
Yeah.
was definitely a high level of respect for women. My mum taught me things that probably, if I was in a single father environment,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't know, such as how I take care of myself on a personal level,
Ooh.
being able to cook, being
Yeah.
able to see detail in things. I don't think like they again, my mum and father are two very very different humans. So
100%. Right.
they're fundamentally different as well.
Yeah.
So it's I think I was very lucky in that sense as well, that my mum took a very thorough approach to not just raise me but to give me skills
Yeah. Yeah.
as a child, and I think that was what came from that environment. It was it was heavily skill led, knowing how to cook something, knowing how to clean something, knowing how to to go and take care of myself, getting
Hmm.
to a point where I was taking myself to school so that
Yeah.
she could work effectively for our household,
Yeah.
and then understanding how to support a household as well with her as I got older. So, and
Dude.
from a child. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, and they're beautiful insights. Like, I actually pull a lot of that from my upbringing too, which is just the caring, the attention into detail. And here's another thing that's fascinating that I just don't think we give enough credit to. Like, the true superheroes in my life are mothers, right? Like, now having I just my son turned 19 months old recently, and just to see the instincts that they have and the caring that they have, uh it's just a game changer how it works. And I deeply, deeply think that I would not be the emotional, like, empathetic human being I would be that I am today, which is probably one of my biggest strengths if it wasn't for her. And it's just and this is the thing, um, that I think also we don't talk about enough is that being in, whether it be male or female dominated households, there's benefits to both. But what's cool is you were able to get the balance too because you had those travels over to the States, and then you did get to experience the sports and competition. And I just don't think there's enough to be said. We live in such a day and age of these extremes. It's cool that you got to see both sides and were able to, like, balance that out a little bit. Any thoughts there on the importance of balance in life?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It was vital, kind of thing, and having the ability to then, you don't know what you're missing until you recognize what it is that you was missing, kind of thing.
Ooh, I like
Um,
that.
and so fundamentally, until I knew certain aspects weren't a part of my daily life, I never missed them. But once you see it, you kind of your scope expands.
Mhm.
So therefore, you get to a point where now you understand that there's something missing from your life that others have as a daily occurrence in theirs.
Right.
So you have two different directions I feel like you go at that moment, and one of those is to desperately miss it and probably rebel, or the other one is to understand it and enjoy what you have taken, carrying on to take what you have from the life that you have, but while enjoying the moments when you can expand it back to the same scope that you've now discovered. Um,
Dude,
so
that's such a profound. Sorry, I jumped in, but that's such a
no, sorry.
profound insight, right? Is to be able to appreciate and reflect what you have, opposed to rebel against it. When do you think you came to that conclusion? I know we're being reflective now, but like, were you able to appreciate that earlier on in life, or did it take a while to get there?
It takes a while to get there.
Yeah.
I think I definitely appreciated it, but I didn't rebel. I kind of was seeking it out. I think fundamentally, I was looking for it again. On the search for it. I made friends, and I definitely became part of my friends' households in the
Right.
process because I loved. It was a different dynamic at home. My mum was incredible. She just worked and worked and worked, but because
Yeah.
she worked and worked and worked to give me everything I needed,
Yeah.
it meant that we lost out on the home environment, the
Yeah.
stereotypical home environment that I had just got this scope of when I would go to the US, and it was like,
Mhm.
well, I want mum to be more like that, but if mum's more like that, then we ain't doing anything, and there's no more America trips.
Right, dude.
So it
Right.
was like looking at both. It was like, and then you come to a realization. I did as a kid. As much as you don't, I know it much more as an adult, much more as an adult. As a child, you definitely come to a realization. Hence, why you go looking for it, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just made some of the most incredible friends on that journey, who are my friends to this day, because of that. I found people that genuinely wanted me to be in their life as well,
Mm.
and I'm essentially family with to this day because
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
So even though that thing was missing, let's say, in terms of that environment at home, it's also enabled me to go and get lifelong friends in the form of humans who now have their own families, and I'm a part of their families as well. So I see none of it as a negative in the long run, because I ultimately got to expand my own environment to far beyond the scope that I thought I wanted in the first place.
Dude, you're giving me chills because I mean, dude, we randomly meet through Web3. Like what you just say could not more deeply resonate with me because I lived that exact life. The opposite though. My dad was at home. He was a mailman. He worked. He was tired when he got home. I did not get that like family
Yeah,
environment as well too. He woke up, he went home, and my best buddies came from the households that I got all of that, right? Like
yeah,
um I called them my second mom and my dad, like my best buddy, right? Was there all of the time because it gave me all those extra things that I had. And looking back, and now that you said this, I've never even thought about it this way. And this is the coolest thing that we can do is um I definitely was inherently searching for that as well too, even not knowing that. And the cool thing that has come from this, and this is all about, and I think the important message in all of this, which is really, really cool, is to not rebel and be angry as much as you want to, but to deeply appreciate the aspects that your situation gives you, and then also be able to seek out these other things that you're missing. But if you're seeking them out with the right intentions, it can become a beautiful thing in the sense that I am one of the rare people, I'm probably one of the only people that I know that core group of friends that you were talking about that I cultivated during that time. We all went to Penn State in college together. There's 5 of us, and we still talk to this day, and I'm 43. No one's doing that, right? And we literally go travel and see each other. And I was just back east, and it's just like old times. But that mission and that perspective of, if you can take and self-reflect on the things that are positively impacting you and interpret it in the right way, shit's a game changer.
Mm. It really is. It
Thank you
really
for
is.
sharing that, man. So
No,
let's
my
fast
pleasure.
forward a little bit to, we're getting into high school. You're having these amazing times. You're getting balances from both. You're starting to get competitive. Talk to me about like more of the, now you're trying to you're starting to mold your mindset here a little bit, right?
Mm.
Like, what is interesting to you, because you end up doing this kind of tech creative world. So there's creativity there. There's entrepreneurship, business skill sets. In this moment in your life, reflecting back, what were some of the things that you were starting to think about? Were you learning these skill sets through sport? Were you learning it through studies? And did you take a liking to certain subjects? What'd that look like to you?
I think I grew up in a very creative environment.
Ooh.
So I was lucky. I was lucky in that sense.
Mhm.
I had sports, music, and art around me. Went great as a child. I was very, very privileged in that sense. My so if we go, if we start with, if we go back to the US, one of those cousins ended up being an NBA draft. So,
Wow.
but that was tragic. That ended in tragedy because on his last game, he passed away on the court and had a heart attack.
My God.
Yeah, so that was very tragic, and
Just a
that was
freak
a
accident.
he just had a heart condition, an underlying heart condition. It was literally his like they televised it and everything. It was the game because he
Wow.
was drafted from the high school that he went to in Maryland, I think,
Mhm.
or from the college that he was in near Maryland, and so it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't think they had a draft or
Right.
something from that
Yeah.
school, so it was a very big
Wow.
occasion, and he literally passed on that court. So I was very lucky to have him in my life as a child because he gave me a competitive spirit,
Right.
taught me how to play basketball, and
Wow.
I was knowing, I was like just that little, I was the run trying to keep up with my tall cousins in
Yeah.
America,
Yeah.
trying to get the ball from them. And then my mother is another big figure in that because she was a very astute businesswoman, but she would also do singing with my aunt, who is a music artist in the US,
Mhm.
and my father is a very interesting human as he's a former professional fighter, but he's also a musician as well.
Mhm.
And then yeah, there's a few there's a few other things sprinkled in there. So very again very lucky going into that kind of period of knowing that creativity was there was a freedom to express myself in that way as a child. I think
Ooh.
not a lot of children get that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's normally the school is the focus, and it's like I very much had a find your way, find what you like kind of
Yeah.
attitude from thrown at me, which was fantastic because I think it gave me the freedom to really explore everything.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't like drama, I knew I didn't like dance, um, but sport I played absolutely everything. Going into high school, my mum did something. She pulled a real poker move on me, and she pulled me out of my primary school, which I had made all my friends in, and she sent me to a secondary school in a completely new area with no one that I knew, no friends. Had to start from scratch, and it was shattering at the time because I was lost,
Yeah.
and it probably made me who I am today because of that, because it meant I had to adapt and learn how to be in a new environment very quickly. And I got that skill as a 11-year-old boy rather than a 21-year-old man who goes to university.
Yes. Yes.
Excuse me.
Talk to me,
So
like,
yeah.
reflecting back on that shattered part, right? There's a part of that is interesting to me, which is like finding self. Now, of course, when you're 11 years old, you're not thinking about these things. But my moment actually, unfortunately, didn't come till like some major mental health issues in my 30s of like finding my sense of self. Talk to me about finding sense of self, what that looked like for you and how important you think it is.
Um, oh wow, did I find it then? I've, yeah, I think my sense of self came a bit later on in my teenage years for sure.
And what did that look like to you,
Definitely
and
the back end of it.
how important do you think sense of self is to entrepreneurship and growth and all of those different things? Like, what does that look like in your perspective?
That is a winding road, my friend. We could go on for we could probably do a whole podcast on that one.
For sure. Give me the highlights, bro.
Find sense of self for me was understanding I didn't have the same life as others,
Mm,
and that being okay.
yes.
Because I think as children we judge ourselves very harshly,
Mhm.
but we judge our parents more for not giving us what others have. And in that moment, that causes, I think, it causes the parent to the humans, as we know, as we are older people now,
Mhm.
we know we still have those same deep down thoughts about ourselves, not doing enough, not being good enough. Am I providing enough? Am I achieving enough? And
Yeah.
I think how my criticisms of me not having enough as a child because I'm looking at someone else could have affected my mum,
Mhm.
who was doing everything she
Yes.
possibly could.
Yes.
So my sense of self came when I had the opportunity to make money as a young boy to provide for my household with my mum so that my mum
Nice.
had more freedom.
Yeah.
And that then made me realize I think I got I was very lucky in the sense that because I could, and so some people look at it different with a different perspective. Some people are like, oh, you had to work at 17. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I worked at 17. It was fantastic. I had money. My friends didn't sometimes.
Yeah.
I gave money to my mum. My mum could do less work herself. It was brilliant. I was playing sports still. I was earning good money in terms
Mhm.
of the job that I was doing. I didn't go into university. I went into banking instead as a 17-year-old boy, and that was my
Right.
university. So I really got that sense of self at that moment when when my mum said you need to get a part-time job. Um, I said as a 17-year-old boy if I wasn't going to go and continue schooling,
Right. Right.
and that moment kind of encapsulated me wanting to carry on playing sports at a very good level,
Yeah.
wanting to see friends, but now getting the life lesson of, well, you do that by going to work as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Dude.
yeah, it installed that drive at I think what I would call, when I look at my friends 3 to 4 years later, 3 to 4 years earlier than what they got it, where there was more important things in my life than just friends as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And there was more important things in life than getting messed up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and actually having to having someone that relied on you, because my mum at that point inherently relied
Right.
on me because it meant that she could take her foot off the gas a bit and live a bit of her life.
Hmm. Dude, again, I'm going to repeat this. Like, this is insane. You're literally talking about my life, but I'm like a ginger bearded white dude from America. There's a couple critical messages I want to talk about right here, which is one, as different as we in our mental minds make people out to be, we are all so similar. It's insane, right? Literally, what you described to me is every feeling I've ever had in my body. And the one thing that I think deeply resonated with me, and unfortunately, mine manifested not coming out till like in a pretty horrific way because I just shoved everything deep down inside and I was like, oh, I'm a happy go lucky Mikey G, right? But it is the true fact of the sense of self ultimately comes from understanding everything you think you want and desire does not make it better and life okay. It's the acceptance of this is the cards that I've been dealt, and I am okay with that. And then once you get past that, like you said, the ironic part of all the whole thing is if you do accept that, what did you just say, man? You were building skills 4 to 5 years earlier than your friends, even though at the time you were like, F this, I don't want to get a job. I want to play sports. I want to hang with my buddies. But now reflecting back at it, the best thing you ever did was actually go start building those skill sets earlier than your other friends. And it makes total sense. And you see why we're doing what we're doing here now is I'm like deeply getting to understand and know you. And it makes sense that you got into Web3 and that you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build your media company because these things are already starting to be deeply ingrained at you in a young age. And you being able to have the sense of self and now reflect on that and know that like inherently you were doing that because when you're young, you're just making decisions. But at the same time, I think those things that your mom taught you enabled you to like bite the bullet and do those things. But it's that
Yeah.
acceptance part, which so deeply resonates with me too, because I didn't realize for the longer, me harboring down actually created a lot of resentment and anger. And it's just like we can talk about this all day long is like these are the things you shouldn't do, but you have to find your own path on how to deal with that. But it
Yeah.
does never hurts for us to say we grew up in different parts of the world, but we had the same exact emotion and the same exact experiences because of the environments we grew up in. So, dude, thank you so much for sharing that because that's such an impactful message. And I'm literally getting chills because I'm talking to myself uh, because I went through all these same experiences and emotions. So, thank you, man. It's beautiful.
My
Beautiful.
pleasure, mate. My pleasure. I think to reflect that back onto you as I grew up further, I met individuals like that as well, and that was comforting in itself. That because it still is quite daunting when you get to a certain age where it's like, oh, was I the only one to
Yeah.
experience that?
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
that different? And even to this day, just hearing that is very comforting to know
Yeah.
that someone had similar experiences and went through similar things and those thoughts as well. They're deep.
No, thank you for that. And again, like I said before we started this, right? Like this is the whole and this is not talked about enough. That moment in time that we just had that connection, someone else is going to listen to this that had the same exact experience. It's going to click in their head. And there's this comfort to knowing, because when I went through my most adverse times, the comfort came from two places really in my mind, which was knowing I had unconditional, loving support to help me get through those times. But two, connecting with people that understood where I was coming from was so paramount. And so the fact that we can be where we are in our lives and reflect back on these moments and understand we came to the same conclusion. That's what's mind blowing to me. Is we literally came to the same conclusion and it's made us who we are today. It's a freaking beautiful thing. So before we get into finance, man, the one last question I want to ask is your mother is a very, very powerful figure. Mine was too. I want just one really impactful thing she taught you about whether it be discipline, be kind, organization, like this kind of self trait that you still carry today, because I'm really interested in what that would be for you.
It's interesting because I can't say she was a my dad's the talker. My,
Yeah,
my verbal abilities come from my father for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, my mum was a doer,
Mm,
and my determination comes from her. So
Yeah.
the biggest thing I can say that she taught me, and the most inspiring thing she taught me, was just she was willing to, and I know this as an adult now, I didn't know it
Yeah.
at the time,
Of course. Of course.
but she she was willing to grind out her day and her life as a young woman to make sure that her child was provided for,
Yeah.
and that was her family. And I think that taught me to not give up, to not stop, to keep trying, to not feel like not be deterred by failure. Um, because there would definitely be times that she would have felt like she failed because of how naughty I was as a child at times, the trouble I would get into. I can only imagine some of the roller coasters I took her on, and
Right.
she went through all of that and came out the other side with a smile and still working hard.
Right.
And that inspired me more than, as an adult, that inspired me more than anything else, was
Yeah.
to emulate that, or to try and do some justice to that for my own life.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful insight. And what's interesting to me is ever since we've gotten to know each other and have started chatting, I think this like discipline slash confidence that your mom taught you also comes off of this. There's like a gentle kindness to the way you present yourself too. That's
Thank you.
how I perceive it. Does that make sense to you, or do you don't know
Yeah.
wherever that comes from? Because I get that feeling, man. Like the way you the cadence of your voice, the way that you talk about things, there is this like gentle giant thing going on there too.
Yeah, the women in my life, my aunt had a big part of that as well.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
mum's next eldest sister, she played a second mother role almost, and they were very, very different figures. My mum was authority and she was fun,
Yeah.
but they were both respect, and so I learned respect in different ways.
Yeah.
Is what I mean by that is authority respect and fun respect, and still that balance between the two, and presenting yourself in a way that allows people to engage with you as well,
Yep.
but
Yep.
being respectful of everything. Everyone's different.
Yep.
I think being from a mixed background,
Mm,
you inherently end up learning, and being from a mixed background, but being from mixed cultures as well,
yeah.
and in a country that's a whole other culture as well, while traveling to other countries with different cultures,
Yeah.
you learn that you're different and that there's differences in the world, and that's okay, and that they're actually things to celebrate. And that thank you for that compliment, because that is something I pride myself on doing,
Yeah.
in any kind of environment, is being respectful to others, and trying to find a way to provide respect as
Yeah.
well. If
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
don't think everyone's felt it.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone's felt it, and I think people then, when they haven't felt it, they feel like they need to be on the attack. So if I
Yes.
can calm the situation down, if I can
Yeah.
relax people's hearts
Yeah.
with conversation, then sometimes you even change someone in the better
Yeah.
for the better.
Oh, we're doing it right now. There's no doubt in my mind. No, it's absolutely happening right now. And this is the beautiful thing. The insight that I personally take from this moment of the conversation is I think this is why humans have a hard time with a lot of different things, because it actually sounds contradictory to itself if you think about it. We're talking about rigid discipline, but at the same time, this sense of like gentle calm and kindness, right? And I think if you understand that uh, there doesn't have to be extremes, and you even said when you were talking about it, this word balance came back up again too. I think it's really, really critical to people to think about. And no one's perfect. I don't even think there is just such a finite moments in time that there is a true right and wrong, right? Even the last guest I had on, we were literally talking about what, like, listen, okay, Hitler bad, Like that's pretty black and white. But even in like wars, if you actually sit back and try to reflect, there are reasons why both sides are coming to this like horrific conclusion, right?
Mm.
But at the same time, what I'm saying is there's always contradictions in life, and balance yet again. You can be disciplined and rigid, but also give off the vibe like yourself that like, dude, I deeply care about you, and I want to do the best for us to make the best out of the situation. So, dude, thank you for that insight. Thank you for everything that you've shared so far. Let's get into episode 2, man. And I'm going to take this time to reset a little
Yeah.
bit. We're starting episode 2. We've actually been talking for 45 minutes already, and we're now in episode 2. We can shorten it up a little bit more so we can talk more about OG Triple Media too.
No, mate,
But,
I'm happy to go with whatever you want to do with, honestly.
dude, it's been incredible already. Like, retweet, do all of the things, but also hit MikeyG.me because that's where my podcast is. Please check out the podcast. I'm all in trying to grow an exposure right now. So anything you can do to give me some likes, some follows, some ratings, it means the world to me. Deeply, deeply helps me out. So with that being said, let's hit up episode 2. We actually started hitting about it, right? You getting into this financial world again through this moment in time till we get up to Web3. And maybe we do 2 to 3 like moments of insights. You don't have to talk as much about like thoroughly giving me the timeline, but let's talk about throughout this moment of your time. What are some highlights and some insights that you drew that you, again, impacted your life and helped you kind of learn and grow?
Um, ooh, so I knew from school I wasn't built for school environments.
Nice. Yeah.
I realized that when I was getting the answers right, but I was being disciplined for not telling them how. And then I realized I didn't want to be disciplined for being right, and I
Right.
didn't want to be disciplined for not giving you an adequate answer because you didn't like that I knew the answer. And that I found a heavy contradiction. My brain couldn't wrap itself around it. I was baffled because I was like, doesn't that mean I'm smart in the way you're telling me that you describe being smart?
Yeah.
And they were adamant that meant I was stupid. So I felt like there was something wrong with the system at that moment. I felt like there was an issue that I couldn't solve and I wouldn't solve. So school wasn't for me.
Mm. Great
And
insight.
in doing so, I was, and it's funny because I'll say that to anyone now and say to them, like, school's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But you better believe I'm going to try and make sure the children go and stay in school.
That's funny because I've had many founders and entrepreneurs say the exact same thing. Now, there's a lot of people that, well, although I think I went to a USC Penn State game, right? Because Penn State now has West Coast teams in their conference, which makes no sense whatsoever. So Penn State went to USC, and I live, northern San Diego, so I'm not far away from LA.
Yeah.
Bro, a general undergrad degree there is over $100,000 a year now. Like, I don't know what you do with that in the sense that, like, there is a profound networking social impact for the 4 years you're in school. Totally get that. But at what point that you're not going to school when you have a profession like a doctor or a lawyer where you have to go through formal education, do you say enough's enough? Any thoughts there?
Oh man, to be honest, my grandmother, last time she told me, probably Christmas, she still tells me I need to go back to university. She's still telling me, my little Caribbean grandmother is still going, no matter how much work I do, no matter how well I might do at it, she is still telling me to go back to university.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't believe it's incredibly hard to kind of put a monetary value towards
Yeah.
it and to besides it, because ultimately a percentage of that come out the other side, and they're making far more than that because of
True.
that time.
True.
There's also the percentage that do it and then just live their life in debt because they don't aspire to what they actually studied in university, and it's just like it's hard to find. Again, it's such a broad kind of question because I think there should be some correlation to what you choose to do once you get in there. I think there should be a better kind of discovery process, much
Hmm.
like school,
Hmm.
because certain things should cost more maybe than other things because of the
For
investment
sure.
of the teachers. But
Mhm.
then if it's just a flat fee
Right.
for everyone of that amount, and you've gone in and you've done business studies and come out the other side and not found a business to do,
Uh-huh.
what did you
What are
just
you
spend
doing?
that 100 grand on,
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
thing? And it's
400 grand.
400 grand. Sorry, excuse me.
100 grand
400.
a year to go to USC.
Oh my goodness gracious, that is. I live in
All right.
Australia now, mate, and
Undergrad,
I
right?
do conversions in my head straight away when people give me amounts in USD, and I'm just looking at that, and I'm like, I can buy a house for that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't buy a house in a major city in the US for 400 grand anymore, but in rural America you could.
Wow,
I mean,
that's
dude,
insane.
San Diego, 400 grand, you're buying a shack that's disheveled, or you're buying a relatively new 500 square foot apartment.
Wow, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just gotten out of control. But yeah, I mean, I think what the point that you're getting at is you really it's hard because it can go in so many directions, and how much do you value the experience? But at the end of the day, if you're going to be taking a commitment like that, you're
Hmm,
damn straight you better be coming out the other side with a tangible skill set. I don't think
that's it.
I don't think if you don't do that, you're doing yourself a disservice, right?
Hmm. But it's also a lot of pressure, isn't it, in that
Yeah,
moment
for
because
sure.
you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I started in finance. I didn't end in finance,
Yeah.
and that's at a work level.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like for those kids, I understand. I get it why so many end up changing direction or they drop out and stuff like that. Because again, like, as we spoke about before, I found myself 4 years earlier than my friends,
Yeah.
and for those that are finding themselves at that point, God, they're at a point where it's the most amount of pressure and the most amount of value and the most amount of money's involved.
Yeah.
And how much pressure is it to now drop out after your parents have now laid out funds for you to do it? And
Oh my
like,
gosh.
you got to think how much that must weigh for the juvenile mind at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's a thing.
and
It's I don't think there's any right or wrong answer, but it is, to your point, a monumental decision and a ton of pressure. Ton of pressure. So, brother, let's do this. 2 to 3 kind of moments as you're progressing your career, right? You're in finance, you're building some skill sets, and I don't know what at this point. Are you starting to lead people? Are you starting to get really fascinated with the technical side of things? We're talking about media, right? Really interested in media in general. So take us on this next part of the journey.
so yeah, so as I said, started in finance, spent 3 years banking in London. Um, was was applying for a teller's job,
Uh-huh.
and they put a test in front of me, and this ties pretty well to what I was saying about being disciplined for getting things right. I got
Yeah.
rewarded for getting things right,
Right.
and I did the test, and unknowing to me, it was put in the hands of one of the people that was there that day was one of the heads of the organization in the UK, and she read it and she brought me into the room as a 17-year-old boy, and she was like, "Do you realize you got 100% on this?" And I was like, "Nope, didn't realize that, but thank you for telling me."
Yeah.
And she was like, "You are the youngest here by 10 years and the only person that got 100%." And from there, that was where I kind of got my first kind of validation that what I understood and what my brain could do was good,
That's awesome,
because
man.
school had taught me it was bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
How funny is that? School taught me it was bad. Work taught me it was good.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and one
amazing,
makes
man.
money and one takes money. So it
Right.
was
Right.
fantastic.
Right. Right. Yeah, we're
um,
back full circle. So the verdict's out. We don't know. We
no.
don't know what the right answer is. So that's amazing. I mean, did that moment in time, what was our follow-up to that? Like, obviously you're hired.
Hired, went straight into the biggest part of banking in the UK, which is in the area called the Docklands,
Uh-huh.
and got taken under a wing of this lady who essentially then put me in an environment and was like, survive.
Wow.
And that is probably where I got my biggest life lessons of work, because being good at something means that you're a target. And being good
Mm.
at something as a 17-year-old boy means you're an even bigger target, because you're around adults
Yeah.
who don't like being bettered by someone younger than them. But you're very naive at this point, and you
Right.
think, and because of the skills and mentality that my mum had put in me and my family had put in me to be kind and gentle and understanding, it meant that I was taken advantage of a lot as a younger boy in in that environment. So I got the harshest lessons, and that was that finance is a massively dog eat dog environment. Banking
Yeah.
and finance is probably, if anyone's looking to do it as a child, I'd probably put them off it, because it's not for children.
Yeah.
It is for people that have got into it later on in life, or gone to university to study it and then done internships and so on. It is definitely not a good environment, because there's so many toxic elements to it that I was lucky enough to learn as a younger boy, but at
Uh-huh.
that time could have, had I not had the mental fortitude that my mum had placed in me, could have actually sent me a completely different direction and given
Really?
up on work.
Yeah.
So that was a big step. And 3 years there, God, it left me tired. I took a year off of work after doing three
Right. Like, kind of
3 years.
kind of took you down. So this is actually a great conversation because I struggle with this as my well. I'm very prideful. I want to be right. I hate being told what to do. But at the same time, building a skill set on how to deal with difficult people is huge in this day and age. You're just not gonna vibe with everybody. So now reflecting back, what are your tactics there? How do you get through these adverse situations in kind of a corporate environment like this? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Um, Look, I think fundamentally you still have to let people be themselves,
Hmm.
regardless of whether you like them or not, regardless of whether you agree with them or not. I am pretty assured in my judgment, let's say. I'm decisive if I
Yeah,
need to be.
yeah,
And I think some people think they're decisive, and then I think some people want to be decisive, and then there's people that are indecisive, and you need to be able to know those personality traits before you engage with them. And I
right.
think that as a leader and as someone that manages people, everyone tries to get too deep with it, and it honestly, for me, it's those factors. It's the decisiveness to the indecisiveness, and that scale. Because the one that wants to be decisive or thinks that they're decisive, they're typically either not confident enough, or they're overconfident. And it's just
Hmm.
such a thin line in that moment, because that then I only know this because I've had to go through each one of those steps and phases myself, of wondering where I take a step in, or if I take a step out, or should I say something, or do I say something or
Yeah.
not say something. And it's fundamentally one of the most important parts of my days, is making decisions that affect others. So therefore I need to make sure that I'm hearing what everyone's saying in that moment, and whether I like them or not, or whether they have the right information, everyone's voice is important, because the worst feeling in the world is going home and thinking that you're not being heard. And I
Oh,
hate people feeling like that.
yeah, yeah,
I
dude.
hate it. It hits my soul, man, because I hate that feeling.
And I think there's a couple things I took away from that. One, you broke it down in a pretty simple science, and I like that. Obviously, it's way more complex, and there's a lot to go in there. But I've actually never heard that perspective of like decisiveness, indecisiveness, or being overconfident, and understanding that. And I actually think that's a way to go. The other thing that I reflect on too, though, is in this again, why I love doing this is we're going full circle back to something that you learned earlier on than I did, but you have to you will end up destroying yourself if you try to change people or fight against them. You have to, as quickly as possible, come to the conclusion that they are who they are. And you're just going to have to work on how do you work with this person to get the best outcome that you're trying to get. And that's it. It's that simple. And there are many different tactics to get there. But I think that's a critically important thing that you said too, man.
You know,
Any
people aren't
other?
always going to like you as well. I think that's the other thing,
Yes,
and
please.
that's a one for yourself. I mean, one for that's more of an inwards one that you have to go on that journey. Is that we all want to be liked, but ultimately we are going to rub someone is going to be the complete opposite of our personality, regardless of how nice we might be or gentle we might be.
Uh,
Someone is going to dislike you just for those traits, in
yeah,
fact.
yeah,
And coming to that understanding, coming to that realization, I think is not only important for you in work, but also for your mental being.
yeah,
I think it's okay to not be liked by everyone,
yeah,
as long as you've got people that love you, kind of thing.
yeah,
And taking that into the corporate environment, into a work environment, I almost enjoy it at this point. When people don't like me, it's almost
right,
a challenge.
right,
It gives me fire in the belly to want to either get them on side through my work, or to just disprove them and make them completely dislike me more because I'm doing well with what I'm achieving.
right,
And I
right.
think that that's one big thing I would say. I would say to the children, and I say to people when I'm working with them, is people aren't always going to like you. They're
Yeah,
not, and not everyone wants to see you win.
yeah,
And that's okay for their personal journey, but don't make it your personal journey.
for sure. Absolutely. I mean, it couldn't be more of a impactful message to content creation, which is one of the reasons we're here to talk about is there's niches of niches of niches at this point in day because we have so much content out there. And I think it really is about finding you are trying to figure out your product market fit as a business, as a content creator, and finding that audience is really, really difficult. It seems like it would be easy because you have this access to all of these tools. But it's the way, what type of content do you make? How do you present yourself? How do you cut something like this, which is a long form podcast, up and make it impactful to maybe not just your core audience, but multiple other audiences to bring in and grow and widen? Like this is a highly complex matrix. But at the end of the day, the mantra of you're not going to be liked, it's okay, is a fantastic one. So
Yeah.
let's do this. We got about 10 more minutes, and then that'll give us about 20 minutes to talk about um, Web3 and OG triple media. You don't have a hard stop. You can do about
No, no,
another
we're good.
5 hours. Okay.
Everyone's still asleep, mate. To be honest.
Yeah, you're wide awake at a very early time. So take me, however much you want to. It doesn't even have to be 10 minutes, but let's talk about tech and media. Transition into from
Yeah.
the finance to there, because this is obviously an important topic. leveling into the Web3 and what you're doing now?
Yeah. So, funny story, as I said, I went through a year lull after the financial times, and my mum, funny enough, um, was sick of it uh, at this point, and she came home one day and she was like, "I got you an interview with someone that came into work," and there, that was it. I kind of had an interview, and I went um, for this interview, and it was with a small tech reseller company, hardware industry, Cisco industry. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
much about that kind of stuff. And he immediately took me on, and he put me in a room with four incredible salespeople, like I'd never seen anything like it before. I mean, this was a room of four people that were just billing, mate. They were just throwing things at people, and it was sticking, and it was and the most intimidating environment I think I have ever experienced. Excuse me, and it was terrifying. I have to say, I look back on it now, and it was one of the most terrifying things. And there was one individual who sat at the back of the room, who was kind of the guy that did most of the buying, but was also probably the top guy in the room as well. And I would, for years, I only for the first 6 months, I only saw this much of his face over his laptop. So again, incredibly intimidating. And like the first thing he kind of did was set up my computer and everything, and he was like, he set all my passwords, every single password, phone, computer, CRM, everything was burned that phone, and I would have to do telemarketing calls
Oh,
all day for the first 6 months. All I mean, if you want to talk about Mr. Miyagi shit, sorry
yeah.
if I can I swear?
Yeah, you can curse. Go for it.
That is, if you have the fortitude to do 6 months of that and you
Hmm.
come out the other side, that is the best thing for your confidence, for your care, for your ability to talk to people. That is the it is grueling, and you could leave there every day and I wanted to kick a bin, I wanted to just stomp on the ground every single day.
Yeah.
And every day I'd come in, and if I was a bit unconfident and I'd go into it a bit slowly, all I'd get from that little thing was, "You better pick up that phone," for months, and then I got to about the 6 month mark, and I now I'm starting to talk to clients in a selling perspective a bit more as well. And we had our warehouse next door, and I went into the warehouse. The clients asked for something. I went into the warehouse. I came back in, and I recited the sort code, which is, if you know any kind of Cisco hardware, is a ridiculous thing to do. And I
Yeah.
recited it from memory out loud, and he stood up from behind his laptop and he pointed at me and he went, "Boys, he gets," and like they immediately was like this little kind of like welcoming moment into that
He did.
environment,
He
because
did it.
that was what they were doing. And I didn't think they liked me. I didn't think I was doing well enough. I went through every mental challenge you could possibly think, trying to get to that point. And that was all he was trying to do, that whole time. It was just give me, like, not coddle me into being good, but build me into being amazing. And from that moment, I mean, I did tech for the next 6 years specifically.
Uh,
No, 5 years specifically. Carried on learning about Cisco, carried on learning about hardware, and dialing into that. But that individual, the guy that was like that, he became my best friend as well, um, and to this
Talk to me
day. And
about that transformation. Any insights there? Because you know there's people in that similar situation right now. Advice, insights, and like what that really did for you.
which one? The
The guy.
Well, as in like how he became a friend.
Yeah, this is such a weird instance where like you're terrified of this human being for so long, and then you become a friend. Is it again appreciating what he was doing for you,
He took
or
me into my next evolution in life, I would
mm,
say.
mm,
He that next stage of what I needed to know and to understand,
yeah,
he took me on that journey.
yeah,
And I think we talk about mentors, or we go looking for mentors. I didn't go looking for a mentor, but I came out with one. But I came out with a brother,
mm,
and ironically, we had a similar upbringing. Yeah, we had a similar life. We were born on the same day, 10 years apart.
wow,
So we had all of these synergies, and I think he obviously saw them in me as well. And we went out for a beer, and we learned all of these things. And from then, he went from being distant to build strength to being the warmest and putting his wing around me and making sure I was protected and
wow,
giving me everything that he had learned on his journey.
yeah,
And then introducing me to his family. And literally, I mean, you've never seen trust like this from, you might have seen trust like this, but this man made me feel like I could walk into his home at any moment. He would leave his children with me to care for them. He
yeah,
would make sure there was food in front of me if I came round. We built a building together in the back of his garden. Like, I mean,
wow,
we went on a journey, man, and he
yeah,
became his family for
that's
me now.
awesome.
I would say when you meet someone, don't always go down the same route of thinking that they're against you
Yeah,
because they're trying to make you work harder.
yeah,
They might be doing that to build strength in you,
yeah,
because I do know exactly what he meant, and he says it to me even to this day. Is that like I could have just been nice to you and been your friend from the get go, and we probably would be friends, but we wouldn't be friends how we are now, and you wouldn't have the skills you have now. So how much was that worth? 6 months of your life. How much was that worth in the longevity of your life? And it just made so much sense in that moment.
dude, thank you for sharing. Like, there's literally nothing I can add to that. I think you put that in a beautiful way. So thanks for sharing that, because I think um, I've experienced that a lot too, and I've always wanted to push back, but it's back to this acceptance thing, right? Back to the acceptance of the people that um, we learned this through, more of this kind of like childhood that we were talking about of just you can get rid of the frustration, understand the acceptance of the situation. And there are, dude, you can go off and just say I'm done, and that's fine. But there's consequences, good and bad, to every single decision that you make in life. And you could have made the consequence the decision to say I'm out, I'm done at that 5 month mark, and it would have been drastically different. But you didn't, and you made it to this moment that has like profoundly impacted you. So just, dude, thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, my
Let's
pleasure,
let's
mate.
let's transition into Web3, because I don't want to do you a disservice of not being able to talk about OG Triple Media. I actually have a hard stop in 25 minutes, so
Okay.
we
Yep.
will
Yep.
take the rest of the time. Any just insights you want to give on how you found Web3? What excites you about Web3? And then we'll get into kind of OG Triple Media and the evolution.
Look, so I'm a huge, huge nerd at heart. I am like full on. Before I was collecting things in nerd free in Web free. I was collecting things in IRL. I mean,
Yeah,
I've got a whole room full of hand drawn comic book characters by an artist,
nice.
from mangas all the way to DC and Marvel,
Wow.
comic books, action figures, everything,
Please
gaming.
tell me you have Marvel Masterpiece 1992 to like 95 comic cards, because they were the greatest comic trading
Mate,
cards that ever came
in the
out.
UK, yes, back home in my mum's loft, there's definitely some stuff in there that I need to actually go back, and because I think my Pokemon cards are also in pristine condition, and I'm seeing how much they're worth at the moment.
Oh, dude.
For-
Blue just tweeted from DSK Dow like his Pokemon portfolio has outperformed crypto after the last couple of years. You know, it's insane how much these things are worth right now, but it's true.
Mate, I've
So
got
huge
a
nerd at
book.
heart, which makes sense. Web3 and NFTs, you're all in, right?
And not to call it, it's not a nerdy environment. It's more of the case of like, for me personally, my journey wasn't so much. I liked crypto, I did crypto stuff, but it wasn't about the crypto. Wouldn't have got me
Yeah,
here. NFTs got me here.
same.
That's the crux of it, and it it was kind of a marrying of different things in life: gaming, comic book characterization, identity as well. How I think a lot of people don't realize is how often when we were growing up we would find an avatar of some sort to represent
Mhm,
ourselves
mhm.
doing something, and we're doing the exact same thing now, and we now almost get overly competitive with it at times, and it's funny because it's just like we've done the same thing our whole lives
Yep.
in that sense, and
Yeah.
so I loved it, man. And coming into Web3, it kind of made sense for me overall because it was kind of that journey. It's the next step in that journey as a collector of things. It's that next step in that journey of comic book characterization as well. And I just wanted to be a part of it, to be honest with you. It felt right, kind of thing. And seeing how it formed communities,
Hmm.
seeing how it forged connections, regardless of the negative aspects of some of the things that exist within it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like you can't take that away
Right.
from people, and I love seeing that for some people it becomes a safe space because
Yeah.
I think that's vitally important as well.
Yeah. It's incredible the amount of people. I was just having this conversation last night. Incredible human being. If you have not found Coin Games and Project O yet, uh, phenomenal video game, brilliant mind. This guy's name's Kevin. And we were talking about and we find this more and more often as not. One, there's a huge amount of gamers and nerdy type people within Web3, but there's something about this community and socialization that started behind a PFP and is a lot more becoming doxed like this, right? As just there's still, even if you take away the grifting and the sucking of funds, there's this and we couldn't describe it, the it factor of like it's a gateway for these type of people to become social, and I don't know what it
Yes.
is,
Oh wow.
right?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and 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 I don't know if it's because it's just so community driven, but these friendships that are formed, and now this guy, I'm one of the few that I've just been an extrovert my whole life, like, and
Mhm.
this has come in many different forms, but like this guy's giving speeches, he's going to GDCs, he's on a podcast with me talking for hours on end. And there's just something about it. There's this it factor there, and you just touched on it too. Any thoughts there?
Breaks down walls, mate. Breaks down walls and
Hmm.
breaks down social walls.
Yeah,
Um, we're it's unfortunate, but we are taught to not talk to certain people. We are
yeah,
taught to not talk to everyone. We're taught to not like certain people. We're taught to um, we have our own insecurities of ourselves, of who we can talk to because of those contexts.
mhm,
Because as
mhm,
much as we're told not to talk to someone, what we mentally take in that moment is that, oh, maybe someone's saying that about me, and I'm
right,
not the right fit. So
right,
then we go down that whole journey of not knowing who we can actually connect to. And I think
yeah,
the beautiful thing in here, and unfortunately, I am starting to see a bit of that negative,
yes,
that thought process that we have in IRL is coming into this. And I say it openly, and I will always say it. No one's too big to talk to anyone. I don't care what PFP you have. You're not
yeah,
too big to talk to someone
yeah,
in this space.
yeah,
And we unfortunately have a very large population, although still a niche, who put themselves in a position of hierarchy
Yeah.
just because of an ape picture.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what I why I mention that is because I think we started this so perfectly,
Yeah.
where it was like
Great.
everyone can talk to everyone, everyone's welcome, and these guys who you've just mentioned, especially who are now finding their feet and a safe space because they're getting included in things and they're getting to have their opinions heard, and they're not thinking about what the person on the other side looks like because they're just talking and being a
Hmm.
part of something. Now they've got to think, oh shit, do I need to get that in order to be included now? And that is just full circle on the bullshit of IRL.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
I will always say
this,
this,
yeah,
man. The first month of the Hape server, that like this will always be one of the most special moments of my life. And I was one of like 15 mods that got to just see the evolution from the back end to of this Discord evolve, and the amount of just pure love, cross pollination of collaborations. Like, dude, people are in voice chat for double digit hours just wanting to teach people how to use Photoshop or do animation
crazy,
or
man.
do or write or poetry. I mean, it was amazing. And it was from all over the world. And then a million people realized there was only 8,888 spots. And it started going downhill about a month before Mint because it was like turning into a little bit of the Hunger Games situation. They're like, how in the shit am I going to get this? Because it still brought out the fact that even though it was so, and I think people were genuinely wanting to share in the beginning, but there's always still underlying motivations, right? And there were huge financial motivations there too. And seeing that evolve, but I will say the just pure communication and sharing and just like cutting down walls in that first month of the server was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, I can imagine, and it. I mean, there's a few environments like that even up to now that do
Mhm,
it right. I think, and
mhm.
that create the right kind of connections. It's definitely we're going to go through phases, and like we go through cycles, I think, and we're going to go through phases of social experiment in Web3 where certain things and dynamics and relationships are going to change just because we're in this incubator that's literally replicating IRL by light speed,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're seeing trends like we do in a yearly trend or a decade based trend of we're seeing them in the space of quarters of the year,
Yeah. Quarters. Sometimes even months. Like a month,
sometimes even
right?
months.
Yeah.
And
Which is
I
crazy.
think those trends affect people's relationship capabilities and relationship building
Yeah.
and personal, like how many a big part of why I wanted to develop OGT was because of the negative aspect that I was seeing of Web3.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that people had access to things without feeling like there was some sort of context or something that they needed to give in that pro moment,
Yeah.
because
I love
everything
that.
started to feel a bit transactional, and I
Mhm.
hate that
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
it's
it's always
free.
been my struggle, right? Same thing here as I've been giving this entire time. Yeah, I've made money for sure, right? But it's not ever transactional to me. It's like, how can I pay it forward? Because I know this is going to come back to me in dividends in the future, and it has in multiple ways. So, perfect segue though. Elevator pitch, basically 2 minutes or less. What is OG Triple Media? I'm gonna open my door. I am listening to you, so I haven't just walked in.
No worries. Terrible at selling myself as well, like you was mentioning earlier.
I can help you out with that, brother.
um, so OG Triple, it started as a vision to create a media organization publication that kind of reflected what I do in IRL, and that is create connections between tech companies. And I wanted to replicate that in the Web3 space and create connections between projects. A big part of why I wanted to do this was to do with the fact that I saw so many people going down the route of either choosing to do something that caused them some sort of harm in their experience of Web3, or people that just were ignoring it.
Mm.
And a big part of that, and why I say it in that way, is because I feel like we weren't having certain levels of information provided to us that were so easily distributed if someone wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Um, this was my gap for me, and what I wanted OG Triple to be, it was very much a community of communities. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is, I don't need people to be there every day, but what I wanted was for people to feel like they can come and ask a question, and come and communicate if they're worried about something, or if they're not sure if a link is a scam, because we had the resources and the understanding to check into these things, that they
Right.
could use us as a safe space.
Right.
That was the plan to start with. Ultimately, when I realized I could grow it into an actual business, I changed. Not changed. I incorporated more into that. I built what is now a startup publication and a media organization,
Mhm.
with the capabilities to do agency work within the Web3 space, around media copywriting. And because we have a team of developers, the ability to assist projects in the development of their own assets and promotional work, as well as producing our own, which is why we're heading
Yeah.
into a period where we're about to deliver our first art collection. So it's in its entirety. It's why a big part of why I call it OG Triple is because it has three different capabilities, and three different arms. But what I hope to achieve with OG Triple is to be the trusted publication within the space, built at ground level with projects within the Web3 space. And I do hope that one day people adopt it as a way to share their content as well. So treating it much more like a program channel that
Mhm.
they deliver information on, rather than just somewhere that they gather their information from.
Interesting. So break down those three arms very clearly to me, because you kind of
Yeah.
you went over them. So what would you consider the three arms?
So first one, and the core of the business, is our publication. The publication itself is still in its startup phase, in my opinion, until we are delivering multiple levels of content per day, current affairs and topical content per day. Um, we are not in the phase of where I want it to be, until we are advertising and delivering custom content with brands around the world, both in Web3 and IRL. We're still in that startup phase, but that is the core business, and that is the plan, the overarching plan. And that media organization, we are essentially built in order to facilitate the delivery of news content, um, to the Web3 space, but also as a conduit to people outside of the Web3 space trying to looking to connect to people within this space.
Right.
Um, the next part of that, the next arm essentially would be our web development side of the business, which is both internally and externally. And what I mean by that is that we have a very highly skilled team. When I was putting together the business, I knew I wanted to bring in some amazing founders to build with me. So we have two incredible editors, one of which is a strategic editor for one of the largest tabloids in the UK. We have two incredible artists, one of which is a top 100 published illustrator globally, and another one who's had incredible success both IRL and in Web3 already, with his collections, and they both sit on our board of directors. And then we have just this incredible, and very lucky to have him, Dev, who has a 20 years of experience as well as his own team that he's brought into the business as well. So,
Wow.
because of those factors, and the expertise that we have at our disposal, we knew that we wanted to create our own products as well. And because of my passion and enthusiasm, and also background in just loving everything to do with comic book culture and everything like that, I knew I also wanted to create something pretty special. And that passion was shared by those individuals. So we ultimately have this web development arm, which we're in the process of releasing our first art collection, as well as developing our own NFT universe because of that. And then finally, we have our agency, which is still being ironed out in terms of its development. We have our first customers already, though, and our first client base. I think we're up to 3 clients now that we're working with. And that agency is essentially put there, much like my work in IRL, to fill the gaps of organizations that they might be missing in order to achieve what they're aspiring to. So
Yeah.
whether that's dev work, whether that's UX, UI, whether it's marketing conversation, or just general business conversations with myself,
Yeah.
we are helping them in those areas, and that is quite unique in itself, because we're not trying to be a we've done this is and we've done this is our best practice kind of producer of content on X.
Yeah.
What we're actually doing with that is very much a behind closed doors, how can we help approach,
Yeah.
what is it that you're missing, that you might need help with, but also helping people understand in Web3, because there's a lot of projects, there's not a lot of businesses, but there's a lot of people that want to be a business. That there's not only the things that you see in the marketing sense that people talk about on the spaces and they do these conversations about, but what you need to also understand is when you're interacting with the media, here's the things that you need to know if you want to interact with media, such as copywriters, such as advertising, what that looks like, what does custom content look like,
Yeah.
and giving them those skills so that when they start expanding their own businesses and they're looking at media organizations, that they're not taking advantage of as well. And that's something that we actually just built this partner program recently, and we give that as a free service to all of our partners, which they've starting to take advantage of, which is fantastic. But yeah, I know I'm conscious of your time, mate. So
No, we've got so much to talk about because we have so many synergies, and I think we can do a lot of really cool things together. And I'm really, really excited to continue to keep on talking. I actually want to give you this space to talk about next 3 to 6 months, like what's getting you excited. You've just laid out kind of the 3 pillars, but within that, is it the NFT collection that you're super pumped up about? Or are there other things that you're just like keeping you up at night because you're amped, man? What does that look like?
talk about keeping up at night. I've never had a job that's kept me up more at night. It is wild being a founder.
Oh yeah.
On a personal note, I almost wish, there's 2 sides to it, right? With the NFT side, I'm such a big nerd for them, and I'm getting to produce one, and I'm like, I just want to keep it to myself.
Yeah.
I love what we've done so much,
Uh-huh.
but then at the same time, I'm like, no, I want everyone to have these, and I just can't wait for everyone to have one. I think we've done such an incredible job. So that's in the next 3 weeks, I would say,
I've
that
seen the
that'll be
glimpse of the
released.
artwork. It's fantastic. I love it.
Mate, and believe me, in those glimpses, I've been showing the standard HD quality.
Yeah.
Some of them are concepts as well. They're not even the final thing. For the first time this week, I saw the 5K versions, and I was just like, "We are about to do some shit."
Awesome.
um, they had. I was just sitting there nodding at the screen for about a good half an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited for that, and the evolution of that, and the IP associated to that. That I think that they have the potential of. But I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to 3 to 6. One of those is the work we are doing with clients, and seeing if it works.
Yeah.
Because we're at a stage where we're starting.
Yeah.
We have no idea if it'll work.
Yeah.
That excites me from an IRL perspective as well, of fulfillment, and wanting to be good at what I do, and good as what we do as a business. So that's one big aspect that I'm super stoked to try and achieve with those clients. On the other side is we're in development of our platform, and our platform will house our news and our publication,
Nice.
but it will also house our library. And our library is designed to be our connecting factor to Web2 and our contribution to mass adoption. This library will consist of as many trusted NFT projects as we can fill it with, that we've taken the time to either connect with or have taken the time to connect with us. And in this library, we will essentially connect conversations to and links to the Web3 space via little profiles. And what we're doing at the moment is building content with individual projects, essentially focusing on our partners, which we have 29 of at the moment.
Nice.
Building content with them, having conversations, interviews, and building their individual libraries that will be in that library, so that when we do start connecting more to that Web2 space and new users, that they can go in and they can interact with that content to understand a bit more about these projects from the get-go. But also expanding that so that those projects can also put their own content in there, that they want, and content creators can put content in there of those projects. So allowing everyone to use it and utilize it, and trying to show the space that you don't have to be. There doesn't need to be a monetary process to this in terms of having access to something like that. We're not influencers, and we don't want to be influencers. We want to be a conduit for information, for the space, and that really excites me, and I'm really looking forward to that in the next 6 months.
Dude, I love that mission statement. All right, brother, we are coming to the end. Always ask every guest my one last question. I'll give you my closing comments, and this is going to be the first of many, many conversations, I already feel. And so my last question is always, you're running a media company, you're building a tech company, you run your own space. You've been part of Web3 for a long time, like I have. How was your experience today on the Mikey G and Web3 podcast compared to other things you're used to experiencing Web3?
I wish we had more time. That would be where I start. Mate, thank you very much. It's funny, I love Web3, but we can be superficial at times, and we can be materialistic at times. And you've taken the time to go deeper, and to listen, and to hear other stories and perspectives, and resonate them, and reflect them, and elaborate on them. And that's something that doesn't happen much. I go on so many spaces here, and I end up listening to so many people talk about themselves without listening to what the last person said, or trying to be the smartest person in the room,
Yeah.
or promote something because they've been paid to, whatever it is. And there's not enough of this that
Thanks, man.
exists. So, like, you're doing something incredible, and I would be incredibly proud, and I'm proud to be a part of it. In fact,
Thanks,
so
man.
thank you very much for including me and finding what I have to contribute valuable enough to have me on this show.
Thanks, man. I mean, again, gives me chills because that's I'm still 100% product market fit for the content I effectively try to deliver, which is exactly the feedback that you gave me. Like, if you feel that, I've delivered the product that I want to deliver. And, to close up, it really is had a lot of people on this show, a lot. And I have stayed close to a lot of them too. But I'm not saying this just because you're here live. I do feel a deeper connection here, and I do really, really want to try hard to continue to figure out how to talk and grow and learn together. Because I think we align on so many levels in the sense that, like, dude, I am telling you, when you talked about your childhood, I was like, holy shit, man. This guy has like lived my life and came to these same realizations. But then, too, your sense of calm, your confidence, the stories that you turned about, and your skill sets, and the same self reflections that I've had too couldn't align more. And I just loved probably my favorite thing. Well, there's many favorite moments. The lessons from your mom. I loved the story about the dude staring at you for 6 months. That was incredible. But we did exactly what I said we were going to do. You gave so many bombs of life lessons here that it will fundamentally impact. We've had comments. We have triple digit people watching us, and it will have impacted somebody. And we did that together, and it was a beautiful thing to see. But what I'm going to say is the last thing, and it was because it was more relevant and recent, is you just described your company uh, that one has a product that can monetize, but you put it in a way still to spin it as your ultimate goal is to help people and to become a conduit for good is what it really boils down to in the right way. And not many people are spinning the message that way, and the world needs more of it. So, literally, from the bottom of my heart, bro, like I said, the beginning of the friendship, keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you for being you. And, you know, screw the haters. Keep on doing it, bro. Keep on doing it.
Agreed, mate.
Thank you so much,
Agreed.
brother.
Thank you very much, and same to you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And with that being said, it's Friday, people. It's the weekend. You better go spend some time with the family. You better go have fun. Mikey G is going to be back hardcore next week. 3 podcasts already lined up. Final Bosu, couple other projects that are not like 100% locked in, but we are going to be cutting B-Rock together, and you're going to be seeing some shorts next week of this beautiful conversation. Mikey G and B-Rock are out.